did everything what he could. And here at the Big Four, and thank you for raising such an awesome son, because not everybody nowadays can do that, you know.
I wanted to be there.
We are carrying Corporal Frank Tortorici, who's been in Ukraine for the last 15 months, and he lost his life, unfortunately. He is a U.S. Marine veteran, so he was serving with the International Legion over in Ukraine. His father's also on board with us up in first class. So thanks for your consideration for that, and we wish him the best. Welcome aboard.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carmine Downey. I'm a former U.S. Army Special Forces NCO and a retired federal agent like John. When John and I met each other, it's rare that you connect on so many levels, both as MMA coaches, military men, and agents. When I met Ian, he was a young Marine and an MMA fighter. As a coach, I saw unbelievable talent. As a military man, I saw somebody who exemplified everything those of us in a warrior brotherhood look for: duty, honor, integrity, courage. Because I lived 3 hours from John, I was not able to be side by side every time Ian had an accomplishment. But John and I would often chat about it, discuss it as fathers. I watched a young man follow so closely in his father's footsteps, but then move into his own. I know how proud John was to see him exemplify everything he taught him and bring it into practicality. He went on to become an agent, had a great reputation. As federal agents, we're a small community. We talk amongst each other, and you would hear how great he was doing. He did something tremendous by giving up an unbelievable career to go and fight in Ukraine. Well, all of us who serve in the Warrior Brotherhood have the same values and ethos. Particularly those of us in Special Forces live by a motto, de oppresso liber. It's the motto that is ours, and it stands for the liberators of the oppressed. Many times our missions take us to countries where it is not a declared war. We do not receive combat patches, CIBs, medals. It is all done with the same bloodshed, but without any of the accolades. I can think of no one who exemplified this more than Ian in his last deployment. To go and do what right now 10th Special Forces Group is doing over there and receive no accolades, nothing but leading others, training others, and being a point of leadership for those soldiers there who don't have the training that we do. Because of that, on behalf of every Special Forces soldier who has ever deployed, I would like to present to John, on Ian's behalf, a Special Forces tab, for nobody deserves it more than Ian.
I served as the platoon commander of the 50 platoon out in Ukraine. I was with Ian from March till December, and then left at that time. I just wanted to kind of express a little bit about his legacy and his story there. We all served in a unit that was under GUR, Ukrainian intelligence. It's kind of similar to the US version of the CIA, or the Ukrainian version of the CIA. And we did mostly reconnaissance missions, assault missions all across the front and behind enemy lines of Ukraine. Anywhere from Mykolaiv, Zaporizhia, to out in the Severodonetsk, Bakhmut, all over the place. Mirny, Dorozhenka. We were everywhere that there was something significant going on. We even plotted missions on the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and Oleksandrivka. You name it, we were there. Bakhmut, Mayorsk, and the whole time Ian took it upon himself to not only fight courageously and bravely and to volunteer for every mission he could get into. He did it with no fear, happiness, a great sense of humor. He conducted himself to the highest standards of being a warrior. He insisted on taking the M249 SAW, and if you guys don't know what that is, it's a squad automatic weapon. It's about 22 pounds, fully loaded, belt fed, shoots about 800 rounds per minute. It's a really heavy weapon, and all the ammo is incredibly heavy. With a smile, he took on that weapon system and carried it as long as he could. At every operation we went on, keeping with aggression, the enemy heads down, so we can maneuver and get our job done and destroy the enemy. And he did an exceptional job at this. And one day he ended up leaving his SAW behind out in a town called Mayorsk, which is south of Bakhmut. He left it behind in order to evacuate and care for several wounded legionnaires that were also out there. With his actions, he not only helped us get our mission done with his bravery and keeping enemy heads down with that weapon, but he also made sure lots of guys got off that battlefield and back home to the hospital or to their families.
10 years old when he was born. He was just the cutest little guy. He was just such a little happy guy. He was so cute. He had curly black hair, and you see all these little pictures of him. And he had these big dimples. Just the happiest baby you'll ever see. I mean, I can't talk about like what he's done in his life, but I can talk about the little baby that, I took care of. I was 10 years old, and I always made sure he was my little baby. So I used to rock him to sleep, read him stories. and he was just so funny. And if you see these pictures and he's got like a little smirk, that just means that he's thinking of something like mischievous to do or say something so kind of crazy, because that was Ian. He was just such a good person, and there was never a moment that I wasn't so extremely proud of him. And thank you everybody for coming, because I know he was such a special person to everybody.
The way that she took care of Ian took care of me when I was really, really young. During many of my very frequent hospital visits, he would always, these are like my earliest memories of him, he'd always be there to distract me from the many frequent injections the nurses would administer. That was him. He always went around making people happy, making people laugh with his goofy jokes. He would do things for people without telling them. And he would always give advice. It was good advice. You'd often follow his advice and it'd be great for you. And if you didn't, he'd say, "That's okay. Well, now you know." He'd forgive you. He was kind of like a guardian angel in that he would look out for you even when you didn't know. He'd, if you were away and he knew some people that you were staying with, he'd put in a few words. Me personally, when I went to college, he put money into the account to pay for college without telling anyone. It just showed up there and we found out it was him. He was many things to our family, and he loved our family the most. He was the family genealogist, in addition to being a son, a brother, and an uncle. And he always loved holding the babies when they were born. As the family genealogist, my brother, he would go out using our ancestry DNA results and seek out long lost members of the family and, try to get together with them. He would take cross-country road trips and take several-hour detours to visit many of our relatives, like my Aunt Esther, Aunt Lisa, my grandmother in Florida, or my grandfather in New Jersey. And he'd always bring back stories of goofy quirks of family members, like how grandma would laugh whenever somebody got whacked in a mafia movie.
Hey guys, I'm Ian's oldest brother. I feel like probably the closest sibling to him since we were only 2 years apart. We were raised very much the same way. And I just want to thank all you guys for coming. My brother would probably be very upset that we did all these things for him in remembrance and to honor him, because he didn't care for accolades, he didn't care for attention. He was very content with just sliding by without anybody ever really noticing who he was and what he accomplished and where he'd been. But I think it's important that we share who he was, what he did. My brother very much walked to the beat of his own drum, lived his life according to his terms and how he wanted to experience life. So, while only 32 years old, he did a lot of things. He was a very accomplished wrestler, two-time CIF runner-up, all-time pin record. Nobody would ever know it. I think most people still don't know that, just the way he would want it. He got a call. He went to the Marine Corps the Monday after graduating high school, earned the sharpshooter medal. Didn't tell nobody really about that. And right after the Marine Corps, he went into get a college degree in teaching. Decided he really wanted to do that. Got a job at Microsoft and didn't really like the corporate job, and I think he was probably going to get fired, which is kind of funny. I think maybe that was what he was trying to do also.
He was a character beyond anything I'd ever experienced in my life. In one of our battles, we've been attacked by a Russian APC, and it shredded our entire team. Grim was wounded. Almost every single man on our team was wounded. Our leader and me and Ian were there, and in the process of evacuating casualties, weapons, hold this for me, we're gonna move people. By the end of it, we were still holding the position. Ian didn't have a machine gun anymore. He had a pistol, and I had a sharp stick. And I was like, "You think this is a good position?" He's like, "Yeah, we'll figure it out later." So we were told to back out, and we backed out, and we found his machine gun a little bit later. In November, I was wounded on a mission. I don't know if anybody talked about that mission, but that was something that we all agreed. They didn't just tell us what to do, we all volunteered to do. It was a rescue mission. It's the kind of missions you don't turn down. And a lot of us went down on that second opportunity on that mission to try to save these guys. And I was in the hospital afterwards. This leg is here because of Ian. Our assistant team leader, Josh, can walk because of Ian. Great team has some guys who are still here because of Ian. And I was in the hospital, and Ian was there. And I was like, "Hey man, team shredded. What are you gonna do?" He was like, "Ain't it over yet?" So they don't make people like that anymore.
Ian, he's very, very simple, but he was very complex too. It was always kind of hard to figure out what he was thinking, what he was doing, what his motivations were. Sometimes I think he was just playing with us all the time. But I spent maybe 21, 22 days in Ukraine. I wanted to make sure I can bring him back. So I escorted him home. I'm also going to return one day with a lock of his hair and to also give him a burial there with his hair, which he wanted. But I spent almost every day taking walks with Nadia, which is his girlfriend there, who kind of showed me around. And we talked about Ian, and we were both trying to figure him out, because he was a mystery to her also. He never told anybody his intentions of going there. He just hit me up on a secure app one day. He said, "Hey Pop, you're on this? Cool." And then he told me where he was. He told me I wasn't allowed to tell anybody. But he was on the ground on March 3rd, just 7 days after the Russian invasion. So in 7 days, he quit his job, he tied up all the loose ends, and he was on the ground. I don't know if he was intending to fight. He just said he was going to help. But obviously he ended up fighting. I had the opportunity to speak with a lot of his teammates there. A lot of them were in the hospital. Some of them, they let get off the front line for a little bit. Some of them were on their way off the front line, got called back. One of them lost his leg, and 4 others went in the hospital. It's bad out there. But 2 teammates, 2 separate guys asked me the same exact question. They said, "What was in Ian's background that made him that way? What about his childhood that made Ian the way he is?" And I didn't know what to say, because I didn't know the Ian that they were describing. He's not, to me, what he was over there. And everybody said Ian had 2 sides. He was very fun, he was carefree, and he was even had a calming presence with people when they were stressed out. That was in the rear. And then when he was in the front, and these were guys that were more recent with his team, I don't know if he started out this way, but they basically said he had an obsession, and I'll try to be as more politically correct as I can, but in the Marine Corps, you say, close in and destroy the enemy. He really had an obsession with that, and they didn't understand where it was coming from. And I never thought of him that way. I know he was in the Marine Corps, he was in law enforcement, but he was always just very kind. Sometimes he would try to act like he was mean, but his eyes told otherwise, and then if his meanness started having an effect, he would back off real fast. I never imagined he would do this, but he did. And the term that kept coming up when they spoke about him, they used the word fearless. like he never appeared to be concerned about being hurt. Nobody ever said the word brave. They said fearless. You know, to me, brave is like when you have fear, but you overcome the fear. And I'm sure he was brave, but fearless kept coming on. Maybe he didn't have that sense of fear. I don't know. He was always a little different. He was wired differently.
Uncle Ian was the uncle who cursed a lot, where I learned all the bad words from. And I would go to school saying the words he would say, or I would learn from him. And then when my Uncle Taylor started cussing, I was like, it's just normal. The rest of the family. Till this day, I'm just like, it's just our language, it's our vocabulary. My Uncle Ian had a cat, Milo. And I remember going to my nana's and seeing Milo run around, and Milo was his first pet, or his first cat. And I have a cat now, and looking at my cat just resembles Milo. And I remember bringing my cat to my nana's house, and seeing my cat run around just reminded me of my Uncle Ian's cat, Milo. My Uncle Ian was everywhere. Every time I asked, like, where's Uncle Ian? He's in a new location. I remember the last time they said the location he was in Philadelphia, working for ICE. Hearing the news of his passing was very devastating, very heartbreaking, and I wish I would have been more in contact with my Uncle Ian. He was very, very honest, he wouldn't hold back what he would say, so sometimes it's scary talking to him because I'm like, I don't know what he's gonna tell me. But that was my Uncle Ian. All my uncles have different personalities, and my Uncle Ian's was very strong compared to the other ones. So I'll miss that.
About this beautiful and humble son of mine. Ian Frank Tortorici, the day I found out I was pregnant again was a big surprise. And I'm not kidding. The day Ian was born, he weighed 9 pounds, 15 ounces. My beautiful memories of this sweet boy, Ian, was very observant and quiet as a baby. Just taking things in. His sisters and brothers would have jumped in and spoken for him. At the age of 15 months, he gathered ingredients from the kitchen, a loaf of bread, a jelly jar, peanut butter, and a wooden spoon. And just like that, sat there in the middle of the living room, waiting for anyone to take a hand. Second day of preschool, his teacher pulled me aside and asked me at what age my 28-month-old son began to talk. My response was, he doesn't. My son, Ian Frank, the boy with the curly black hair, Mrs. White said he's the only Ian and he has extensive vocabulary. Ian was very smart. Every question had a question attached and so forth, loved telling jokes, loved his Legos, bears, and his dog Blackie. Reading was his favorite thing to do. He loved history, cooking, and traveling. Ian, you were a true blessing and pure joy to watch, growing into that wonderful, caring man, son, brother, nephew, friend, your mom's. Nana also forgot to include in there how much Uncle Ian loved Nana as well. You know, I didn't get to see much of my Uncle Ian, but I did get to enjoy the fruits of his labor. He was a kind brother, so I got, great uncles in return. He was a great son, so I got a great Nana in return. I got a happy Papa John. Every time I would go in there, just looking at all of his accomplishments on the walls, it was, so inspiring to know that there's no limit to anything and anything is possible.
My earliest memories of Ian's are mostly all of my memories of Ian, very small. I remember he was the first boy to ever give me a kiss on the cheek. Cousin kisses goodnight. I missed a lot of his visits as we were growing up, but my family were always happy to host him and take him out to eat and take him out to drink, and they'd always send me so many videos and pictures and gifts and everything you can imagine of Ian, as it's a rare unicorn had come to town. And I just know he was a very intelligent man, very empathetic, always searching, traveling. I think he was looking for his version of happiness, and I think in the end, he didn't find it.
I don't know if anybody's heard about how little children can really connect with people who have passed. But in a funny way, I think that he's been speaking to Wesley. My son is 3 years old, but everyone knows that Ian was unfiltered and had a potty mouth, and he told Anthony, like, I'm gonna teach your kids all bad words. And in the last 3 weeks, my son's use of profanity has exponentially grown every day. He's got new, swear words that he's never said before and that we don't say at home. And they just go on and on. So I'm like, Ian, that's fine. Please just don't tell him to say those things in school.
Ready, aim. Ready, aim. Ready, aim. Fire. Green, red, fire.
President of the United States, the United States Marine Corps, and a grateful nation. Please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service.